All right. Since Jordan Peterson joined up with Daily Wire, my man has been kicking it in the YouTube game. What makes a man desirable? Hit me with it, JP. I'm trying to up my game. Why does he look different here? Why does he look wrong here? Well, okay.
Women mate across and up.
Oh, dear God, we're doing the hypergamy thing. Oh, good Lord.
Success hierarchies. And men mate across and down. Women like men who are about 4 years older, cross-culturally. They like men who manifest signs of success, as well as being handsome and personable and all of that.
You've got it, guys. Be handsome, personable, and successful. Many have tried and failed to study the female mind, but what we've gotten is that the female mind likes it when things are good and dislikes it when things are bad. We're learning stuff today.
And the reason for that, as far as I can tell, is that they're looking to equalize the economic disparity that exists because women take a harder hit from sex and pregnancy than men. So they're looking to equal.
Women only like you being successful and pleasant and handsome because they're looking to equalize the disparity in effects brought about.
Up yours, woke
Okay.
moralists. We'll see.
I could do a whole segment on this easily, okay? So this is what is known in the field as Evo Psych Babble, okay? You've probably heard me make fun of evolutionary psychology multiple times in this stream. Evolutionary psychology is, mind you, not an inherently bad discipline, okay? We are animals. We evolved in order to reproduce. Obviously, we are subject to the same natural laws as most anything else. And there are elements of our psyche that are developed from natural forces, things that we don't have much social control over. That is an influence that exists, you know? A baby's cry is biologically designed to grab our attention. When noises happen around us, we have an impulse to snap our attention towards them, even in situations where we know for a fact that there is nothing dangerous around us. Have you ever wondered why we do that, by the way? Like, you know that, like, you're in a classroom and you know somebody's about to go in the classroom, like enter the classroom that you're in. You hear the door open, you turn your head, and yep, it's exactly what you expected. Nothing new or interesting. And then you turn back around. People post-hoc rationalize the hell out of stuff like that. They're like, well, I still wanted to see. What you're doing right there is responding to a biological impulse. It's a danger checking feature. Really? No, there's so much, a ton of the stuff in our brain is just gummed up, you know, evolutionary impulse borne out. The issue is that 99% of the time when evo-psych is brought up in political discourse, it's a post-hoc justification, where instead of evo-psych being a way of explaining a phenomena, instead you have a phenomena that you want to not have a social explanation, so you assume an evo-psych-like justification for it. Essentially, it's asserting evo-psych as the explanation, rather than, like, understanding it as a possible force. There are lots of things that humans have done throughout history that we have just ascribed to natural human behavior, and then it turned out that it wasn't. That is a very common thing. If you read up on, like, 19th century eugenicists, and, you know, phrenologists, and so on, and read what they had to say on human nature, there are a lot of behaviors that they assumed were innate that were really just products of their time. It's a pretty common fallacious argument. So what Jordan Peterson here is doing is he is so desperate to medicalize the differences between males and females that he is ascribing females' preferences for handsome men to a evolutionary desire to equalize the consequences of sex and the financial disparity that comes about from it. Essentially, that females, when they have sex, bear children. I'm saying females and males because that's what he means when he says it, men and women. The females give birth when they have sex, so they incur a greater economic cost, so they're looking to compensate for that by finding men with certain attributes. He can make an argument that the success of men is important here. Why the pleasantness and handsomeness? It seems to me like a hasty attempt to rope everything into that justification. Vosh, I love you, I really do, but sometimes I feel like you overemphasize sociology and, like, completely disregard biology. What? He said pleasantness and handsomeness. Find me an Evo Psych explanation for pleasantness and handsomeness that don't have cultural or social modifiers. This is like there is a reason for this. Jordan Peterson belongs to the cult of pseudobiology that currently is manifested as the primary antagonist to like trans liberation. The idea that not only are males and females different, they're different species. You've noticed that, right? From transphobes or like chauvinists in general, misogynists. Like in reality, men and women in real life are like really, really similar with complementary reproductive systems. And apart from that, it's we're pretty much the same. There are plenty of species on Earth with way more sexual dimorphism than ours. I'll tell you that. But often people like Jordan Peterson are insistent on exaggerating the innate biological differences, in part because it justifies a hierarchy between males and females. And in this case, I imagine, because it contributes to the transphobes' idea that the bridge between males and females is some kind of uncrossable gap, as though it's not just like hormone washes in the womb, you know, as though it's not just like a fairly simple a process of exposing the body to certain hormone and hormone receptors to bring about different physiological changes. I'm reading a little bit into this, but of course, being anti-trans is like his main thing. And yeah, the notion that pleasantness is something women look for because they're looking to Evo Psych blah blah. Jesus.
That, and no wonder they're looking for someone this is for long-term mating, who's competent and generous. Competence.
As opposed to males who do not look for competent and generous people. Yes, again, we've done more in-depth research, and as it turns out, females and females alone like it when they partner up with people who are cool and good. Interesting stuff there.
This would be intelligence, general cognitive ability, and the markers that go along with that. They want conscientiousness or openness, as well as other desirable personality traits. Women mate.
That was it. So again, that bit at the end there would have made sense if he was just referring to the reasons why humans look for certain traits in other people. I do believe that humans generally have a strong set of evolutionary biases towards certain characteristics when it comes to choosing people to fuck and to spend their lives with. I mean, people generally like it when the others are successful, smart, handsome. But to say it's a woman thing? Yeah, I don't know. Kind of weird. Keep in mind, this is from the guy who said that we've never had men and women working together in the same workplaces before, and that he doesn't know what the rules are, and he doesn't know if it can work. Remember that? That's early Jordan Peterson. Remember? Yeah, that's early JP. Where he's like, well, we don't know. We don't know if men and women can work together. Are you serious? Yeah, wait, that's one of... Wait, the clip in which that was said has like 50 million views. Hold on.
Can men and women work together in the workplace?
Yes, I do it.
How do you know?
Because I work with a lot of women.
Right, well, it's been happening for, what, 40 years? And things are deteriorating very rapidly at the moment in terms of the relationships between men and women. It's like, we don't know if men and women can work together successfully.
But in what ways? Because like
in the sexual harassment way.
Because 40 years ago, I would have been, well, I don't know, if I was a white man, I would have been Jacqueline's boss and I could have done whatever I wanted, right? And that there would be almost no recourse that a woman who's working under me would have. Now they have some recourse. I mean, is that a...
There was recourse back then, too. You could take people to the police.
Do you think that was happening a lot? I mean, like,
I think it's a dreadful thing to have to go to the police if you've been sexually assaulted.
If you feel like there's a reduction in harm, right? That things are bad. So you feel like right now the atmosphere in corporate workplace is the exact same that it was 40 years ago?
No, but I'm not sure. I'm not saying that it's any better.
My thoughts on the Russia-Ukraine war. Give me the short. I can't. 51 minutes. 51 minutes from this guy's brain.
I think it's a catastrophe that we didn't integrate Russia into NATO when we had the opportunity.
True. Anarcho-NATOists unite.
Because we had the opportunity and we squandered it. And that was a big mistake. And God only knows what we're going to pay for that. I'm very nervous about the fall because the food front looks dismal. The best projections
The Twitter squirrel has a good thread with every JP clip. Does anyone have a couple of good clips from the Ukraine thing? Like from Twitter or whatever?
encountered suggest that 150 million people will be hungry by the fall, and that'll mean mass migration into Europe, minimum, apart from the...
Wait, is that going to be why it's bad? We'll have mass starvation, which will, of course, lead to non-whites in Europe. There is going to be a food shortage coming up, I'm pretty sure, though. That's true. So prepare for that. I don't need to prepare for it because I'm a wealthy urbanite. You guys have to prepare for it, though. Stack bean cans.
Deaths, which fall particularly heavily on children. We've got a mess on our hands. I think it's a catastrophe that we didn't integrate Russia into NATO.
That's it? The only thoughts are that there's going to be a food shortage? Nah, where's the real video? If you 2 times speed the video, you can get through it. If you 2 times speed the video of Jordan Peterson, his voice would be pitch shifted so high we can't understand it. Think. Where the... Here's the Twitter thread. Let's go. All right, we're getting the clippies.
Degenerate.
Oh, right off the bat.
And are we degenerate in a profoundly threatening manner? I think the answer to that may well be yes. The idea that we are ensconced in a culture war has become a rhetorical commonplace.
Has become a rhetorical commonplace. Profound, my man.
How serious is that war? Is it serious enough to increase the probability that Russia, say, will be motivated to invade and potentially incapacitate Ukraine merely to keep the pathological West out of that country, which is a key part of the historically Russian sphere of influence? And are we degenerate?
Oh, so that was just the full-on neo-Nazi argument. Nice. That's the, that's the full-on, like, military acquisition is necessary to prevent the degeneracy of other cultures from, No, that's just a full-on Nazi argument, yeah. The West means legalizing gay marriage, so Russia may or may not have a right to commit a fucking war and kill thousands and thousands of people to keep their neighbors from being gay or something.
That sex and race trumped qualification, and that a moral case was made for that decision.
What?
But it remains true that sex and race trumped qualification, and that a moral case was made for that decision. And that in and of itself does not provide indication of Western derangement. But,
yeah?
When the self-same candidate was asked directly in an interview during the confirmation process, the very straightforward question, what is a woman? Which, granted, was a gotcha question, which only goes to show the severity of our current level of derangement, and so is no excuse for failure to answer.
I'm telling you right now, dude, they're going to be gassing your asses in the chamber, and when you are like covered in fucking Zyklon B skin burns, leaning up against the port window, slamming on it, saying, "How can you do this?" They're gonna say, well, you can't define what a woman is," and then you'll die, and that'll be the last thing you ever hear. Obviously, this is a subject for which they have absolutely no interest of engaging. You have to understand that from the perspective of the fascist, the idea of men and women being distinct entities is an epistemic universal truth that the left is committing cosmic evil by challenging. Like, to them, the left might as well be upending the earth and tearing the stars from the sky. It's not like they don't care about, they don't want an answer. They only, their indignancy. I mean, you can say based all you want, but you have to understand that they're going to respond to it with the behavior of somebody who sees to them the earth torn asunder and the stars pulled from the sky. They'll kill you over it, guys. They'll kill you over it. They're only talking now because they have to, but they will kill you over it. It's too fundamental a thing to them. For such a silly thing, too. It doesn't take much brain power to understand the basics here. But you have to understand that this outrage of the natural order of things is directly analogous to what, say, southern plantation owners felt the natural ordering of the races was. Not to say that believing that there are two genders is the same as literally owning slaves, but to conservatives, the idea that men and women are fundamental biological realities that can't be challenged by any kind of social intrigue, that is the same as how the slave owners believed that the dominion over the earth given to whites was an innate biblical part of the world. Black people are beasts of burden to them, blah, blah, you know. The response is the same. Do you remember what the slave owners did? They seceded and then declared war on us. And then a bunch of them died. Then we Vernon Sherman'd our way down. I'm only pointing out that these rhetorical games with the, can you define woman? All this is only being done to win over the middleman. That is it. The only reason there's any point at all in engaging in this discourse is to bring over the people who are capable of and interested in listening to these questions and their many answers. For the people like this, you know, it's really just, they're laying the groundwork brick by brick, waiting to the point where they no longer need to ask the question to prompt their answer.
She said, I'm not a biologist. That is not a good answer. But it remains true that
I thought it was a funny answer, actually.
we were enjoined by the Biden administration. We were enjoined by the Biden administration and the woke allies it panders to shamefully and unceasingly to celebrate the positioning of the desired nominee on the basis of the initial call for her nomination. That is, on the basis of her sex and race. At precisely the same time that we were also enjoined to remain entirely dubious, again on moral grounds, that any such category as sex even validly existed.
This is what I mean. What he just said is absolute nonsense. He took like, how many seconds? 36 seconds to arrive at a single statement, and it was nonsense. Nobody on the left, well, I suppose if I say nobody on the open brackets, broad category, closed brackets, I'm always going to be wrong. The predominant thought on the left does not entail the idea that there is no social utility to using the term woman. Leftists say woman all the time. Even crazy fucking gender abolitionist types like me who believe that sex is a social construct. We still say woman. Everyone does this. It's not unclear. But he manifests this confusion because, again, as I've said before, he's trying to trick his audience into being as stupid as he's pretending to be. He knows that he's lying. He's fully aware of the fact that the rhetorical games he's playing right now don't actually reflect reality at all. Can you explain why/how sex is a social construct? Because sex, as with our perception of gender, is a bimodal system, and the points at which we designate somebody as a member of either sex are blurry in the middle. It's in the same way that it is a social construct when blue becomes green if you find a gradient between the two. You can identify that blue and green both exist. You can identify that there's some bluish-greenish action happening in the middle, but at the end of the day, the decision to say, okay, well, this has to go in this category and this has to go in this category is always going to involve some degree of social arbitrarity, which is fine. This is the case for basically all categories. I've heard people get mad at you for calling it bimodal. Yes, well, very much like Jesus Christ Almighty, born of Nazareth, people do get angry when I drop truth.
There is a principle, the principle of non-contradiction, acceptance of which, in principle, serves as one of the foundations for the practice of discourse itself. That principle is the
gender is bimodal, sex isn't. Sex is determined by the presence of a Y chromosome, and yet there are chromosomal abnormalities. Also, that is still not the case. There are people who have a Y chromosome who are in every physiological, biological sense, cis female. They have everything, in every sense you would look to what biological characteristics a cis female might have, they have it, and yet they have a Y chromosome. If you were to look at that person and go, well, actually, you're a male, and therefore JP would go, then they're a man, it's nonsensical. Absolutely nonsensical. At the end of the day, what we designate these categories to refer to is an exercise in, well, social arbitrarity. We do so in order to serve human utility. That's it, really. There are blurry lines in categories all over the place, especially when referring to, like, collections of things.
assertion that it is fundamentally unreasonable, irredeemably irrational to claim that A and not A are identical. Why?
What the f is he talking about? Am I just like not paying? Like, he's just saying shit. What is he saying right now?
Well, because if you can claim that a thing is what it is and what it is not simultaneously, then you can claim anything whatsoever.
What is and isn't? What thing is he saying? What is and is not? What's happening? Why did he's really not that bright. Like, he's not even that good at doing the propaganda bit.
And if you can claim anything whatsoever as true, then it is impossible to talk with you. You have departed from the sphere of reason and reasonable discourse. You have departed from the realm of the rational.
What do you say? Like, it's just, she's just saying shit. It's all narrativizing. It's all, what's the term? I say bloviating a lot, but what's the term when, like, you're talking a lot and you're not actually making a point? You're just like reiterating the rightness of your point. Is it filibustering? I think there are a lot of words. Pontificating. No, I think pontificating is when you're thinking, right? Grandstanding. That was the word that I was looking for. It's all grandstanding. He'll take a minute, load it with 1,000 adverbs to make a single point, and then spend the next minute talking about, you know, again, laden with adverbs, yeah, wanking, essentially, over that point he just made. And the point that he just made didn't make any sense. But he grandstands.
This means that you have become deranged.
Ah.
This means that you have become degenerate.
Ah.
This means that all who fail...
Like, this is grandstand. This means you are bad. This means you suck balls, Lamau. This means your shit stinky. Like, it's such a pretentious, overbearing, self-obsessive way of talking. It's worse than how I talk. I know how I talk, by the way. I am fully aware of the fact that I stumble over my words constantly because my idiot brain goads me into using words that I don't know the definitions of, okay? I'm fully aware of how I am. And he is legitimately worse than me on every front.
Failed to call you on your deranged degeneration have become rowers on the same doomed boat.
Yeah.
Not the Russians. And are not the Russians and the Hungarians and the Poles and the Indians to a lesser degree.
What?
Watching and thinking, those people have gone out of their minds. And we have, to say it again, clearly, the culture war in the West is real, and culture is losing. And
so this is the Nazi argument. This is one-to-one identical to the Nazis talking about the Jewification of Western Europe. How the Nazis would talk about how they have white Aryan allies throughout Western Europe, but countries like France and England and America and what have you have been Jewified, their culture becoming degenerate, forgetting the perceived innate superiority of the Aryan race. And so the analogy here would be Jordan Peterson would be an American, and Germany has just invaded Poland. And he's talking about how, like, from the perspective of the other countries in Europe, you know, how they don't see the road that the Weimar Republic was going down, you know? It's pretty direct. This is just the same logic. It's using nationalist militism as a way of opposing a perceived international conspiracy of degenerate liberalism. I like how he chose Russia, Hungary, and Poland specifically. Yeah, because he's right now trying to appeal to the far-right movements in all three countries. Polish people tend to hate Russian people for several trillion reasons, but there is a far-right contingent in Poland, and Hungary right now is well, non-democratic. They've sunk into fascism under Orban. So, yeah. He knows what he's saying right now. He's attempting to appeal to the Axis here.
Russia is part of the West. And the culture war is now truly part of why we have a war. And it's a real war. And it is certainly the case that we do not, therefore, have all the moral high ground for some part of the reasons
I have no idea what he's saying.
that Mearsheimer details. And
Oh, there's Mearsheimer again. I really have to get a conversation with that cuck. I swear to God I can make him cry. He's old. And he'll probably be dead soon. We have to make him cry before he dies. My geopolitical theory is totally rational, guys. Listen, when despotic nuclear states invade their neighbors, just let them. They'll totally stop after they conquer their immediate neighbors. What do you mean despotic nuclear states with fascist leaderships that are unchecked by any, like, democratic system would invade countries outside their immediate geopolitical orbit? They wouldn't do that. There are no historical examples of countries invading countries that aren't directly bordering them. What are you talking about, dude? Love that. I love how Mearsheimer, like, has been, like, the #1 rallying figure for, fascists and Russian apologists since the invasion began.
for these reasons of insanity. In fact, how much of it we have at all is something rightly subject to the most serious debate.
Well, I'm sure all the orphans in Ukraine will appreciate Russia liberating them from the tyranny of trans people or whatever.
And so the Russians believe that they have a moral duty and that they have the highest moral duty to oppose the degenerate ideas, philosophy, theology of the West. And there's something about that that is not wrong.
So is he making the argument that Russia invaded Ukraine because of LGBTQ people? Yeah, that is what he's saying, yeah. That there's an international degenerate force which is being produced predominantly by liberals in Western universities, like the Frankfurter School, an institution which has never had any anti-Semitic connotations ascribed to it, and that the authoritarianism and military adventurism of fascist countries is justifiable if it means, did I say Frankfurter School? Frankfurt, I'm hungry. Is justifiable if it means preventing that degeneracy. Again, there is a reason why Jordan Peterson looks like somebody time-traveled and got one of the doctors from Auschwitz-Birkenau and stuffed him in a modern suit. And it's because when they start building the death camps here in the States, he'll be saying this exact same thing. That America's defending itself against degeneracy. I mean, if he'll defend Russia invading Ukraine and killing thousands of civilians because of trans people, why wouldn't he defend death camps? Really. If war is acceptable because leftists understand woman XX chromosome, then what isn't? How do you define death camp? It would be a camp where you die. I'm not sweating the details on this one. You'd go there, it would be camp-like, and then you would die.
All protestations to the contrary. None of us give a damn about Ukraine, and never have. Remember the Holodomor? Do you even know what it was?
The Holodomor?
And
what?
All protestations to the contrary. None of us give a damn about Ukraine, and never have. Remember the Holodomor?
The Holodomor? Couldn't they record over that? When he's trying to point out that he knows something that you don't? That, again, like, I live stream. When I misspeak, I'm live streaming. The Holodomor? The Dorohedoro? The Durarara? The Doki Doki Literature Club? Voldemort? Dumbledore? I remember. Cool, yeah, anyway, he wants you dead. Nice. Very fun. What's the point of bringing that up? He's trying to make people less sympathetic to Ukraine by saying it's hypocritical to not want Russia to invade Ukraine if you don't also know about the history of Ukraine. Which is really stupid, obviously. But, you know, he'll say it anyway. Won't stop him from saying it. Should I feel bad if I don't know what that is? I'm surprised, given the fact that I've seen you in chat plenty of times. The Holodomor was the Great Famine that happened under Stalin. That happened in Ukraine, mostly. Okay, just didn't know the term? Okay, yeah. Very good, very good.